I was born on March 1st, 1926 in Paris, France. To understand my story, I need to start with my parents. Both were born in Poland. My father was born in 1870, a tailor and religious Jew. With his first wife, he had 6 children before she died in childbirth. He married my mother, who was 16 years younger, and she remarkably raised his 5 children and had 8 more with him. I was the last of 14 children. When I was born, my father was 56 years old. Before World War I, my father went to Argentina to see if he could make a living there. If it had worked out, I would never have gone through the Holocaust. But it didn't work, and he returned to Poland. In 1921, he was sent to Paris to deal with a brother's death in WW1. The contrast between Warsaw and Paris was so striking that he stayed. Like most immigrants, he went alone first. It took 2 years before he sent for the family. In 1923, my mother gathered all the children and came to France. My sister Madeleine and I were born in Paris. I was very fortunate. I had a great childhood. We weren't rich, lower middle class, but we always had food on the table. The real blessing was where we lived. A woman named Madame Alphin, an aunt of the Rothschilds, built a 7-story apartment house on Ile Saint-Louis, one of the islands in the center of Paris, for Jewish families with many children who couldn't afford rent. Before this, my parents had lived in one small room full of rats. In this building, we had 3 rooms, a kitchen and a toilet. No bathroom, just a toilet, but it was marvelous. The building was filled with children, and it was joyous. Most families were religious Jews. What made it most fantastic was that Madame Alphin hired social workers, remarkable young ladies in their late teens and early 20s, to care for us children from 4 to 7 p.m. after school. These women taught us the Bible and helped us become good human beings. One of them, Lou, later became Golda Meir's private secretary in Israel. When I think about why I survived the Holocaust, I believe these memories, the kindness, the love my mother gave us, what these ladies taught us about life, were the balance that kept me alive. Also, I was young and healthy, which helped tremendously. Until I was 12 or 13, I didn't know about antisemitism because I was cocooned in that apartment building. We went to a school where all the kids were Jewish. At home, we were surrounded by Jews 24 hours a day. I loved the holidays, especially Passover, even though I didn't like the long Seder. I was the youngest child, and during Passover, I had to open the door for Elijah. There was a long black corridor, and I was scared he would grab me and take me away. I've always been able to sing and dance. When I was little, I'd perform for my family and ask for an orange as my prize. To us, an orange was a gala occasion. I started professionally at 12 when one of our social workers, Lily, took me to audition for Madame Aron, who did stage shows for children. She loved me and took me under her wing. I also became a regular on a Thursday afternoon radio program. I was making money at 12 years old and was the envy of my peers. Remarkably, I was also a good student. When I graduated elementary school at 12, I came in first with the highest points. I first became aware of antisemitism when I went to junior high school. Suddenly, it wasn't all Jewish kids. Some kid called me a dirty kike, and I was absolutely shocked. I didn't feel different. I was a French kid who spoke French like everybody else. I actually fought with him, which was the only time I ever fought. I'm a coward by nature. The real shock came when the Germans occupied France. That's when everything drastically changed for us Jews. I remember my father listening to Hitler speaking on the radio, yelling. I was in the kitchen for 2 seconds and said, "I don't understand German. Why is he yelling? I don't want to hear." This was 1938 and war was imminent. When you're 13, 14 years old, you don't want to hear about war and death. I left the room and went to play with my friends. I must thank my parents for never scaring us. They probably thought, why frighten the children? We didn't know about Kristallnacht. They spared us. In a way, I'm grateful, because I didn't have to worry then. I had plenty of time to worry starting in 1942. When we returned to occupied Paris, the first thing we had to do was go to the police station to have a big J stamped on our ID cards. Second, we had to wear the Star of David sewn on our coats with the word Juif, Jew. Then came curfews. 8 p.m. to 8 a.m., we couldn't be seen on the streets. We couldn't go to schools anymore. We had special compartments in the metro. In buses, only 2 seats for us. We couldn't sit with anybody else. It was frightening. We were suddenly the plague. We were not human beings. If a German walked by, we had to step off the sidewalk, or they'd slap us. I couldn't work in show business anymore. Jews couldn't. Luckily, I was good at drawing, so one of my sisters sent me to a private art school. I was terrified the first time I had to wear the yellow star to school. But my classmates were so nice to me. The first day I wore it, they walked with me from school to my home to protect me. I'll always remember that. That was the start of the righteous Gentiles. In July 1941, I witnessed my first roundup at my half-sister's bakery in the 20th arrondissement. The chaos, the noise from buses and French policemen. The Nazis were clever. They let others do their dirty work. It was always French, Dutch, or Belgian policemen, never the Germans themselves. That day they arrested only men, including my brother-in-law and 2 nephews. The nephews got sick, were sent home, got false papers, and joined the underground. But my brother-in-law was sent to Auschwitz and died. We were warned about July 16, 1942. They were going to arrest Polish Jews. My sister Cecile's doctor told her to stay at his office and send our sister Elaine there too. But Elaine arrived home 2 seconds before 8, and my mother said she couldn't go out. The next morning they came. They asked for Cecile. My mother said she didn't know where she was. They asked for Elaine. Here I am. 10 minutes to pack. Elaine asked the French policeman if she could go downstairs to buy a newspaper. He said yes. She went and came back. Maybe she thought if she didn't return, they'd arrest her family. She was sent to Drancy, deported 2 weeks before us, and died in Auschwitz. On September 23, 1942, at 10 p.m., they came to arrest everyone in our apartment building. My mother took the key to a toilet in the corridor and told my sister Madeleine to hide there. Madeleine listened and escaped. My mother wanted me to go too, but I refused. My mother was security. My father was security. What was I going to do with my sister in a toilet? I went upstairs twice to give Madeleine money and clothes, evading the screaming policeman. Then I packed my belongings, drawings from art school, comic books, movie magazines, in a blanket and went downstairs. My uncle came down to say goodbye to his brother. The policeman said, "Get on the bus." He was arrested and died in the gas chambers. They took us to the police station that night. The next morning, buses took us to Drancy. It was a compound of unfinished apartment buildings, no windows, no furniture, just straw on the floor. Thousands of Jews waiting to be deported. We arrived on September 24th. At 3 a.m. on the 25th, they woke us with a list of people to be deported that day. My mother, father, married sister Ida with her husband and 2 young sons, my uncle and I. There's a remarkable man named Serge Klarsfeld who got hold of French deportation records and made a book with 76,000 names, Jews deported from France. When I saw it in 1981, I cried. I saw childhood friends, cousins, nephews, nieces, uncles, aunts, my mother, father, sisters, brothers-in-law, and me, with a dot in front of my name. A dot means that person came back. You can flip those pages and see very few dots. In my convoy, there were 1,004 people in cattle cars. We traveled for 3 days and 2 nights. We arrived in Kozel, Upper Silesia, 60 miles from Auschwitz. The SS kept 175 men on the ground while the train went to Auschwitz. Dr. Mengele did the selection there. 91 women and 40 men selected to work, while 986 people went to the gas chambers. Out of 306 who survived the selection, only 15 men from my convoy came back alive. People ask, how come you didn't escape? How come you didn't rebel? It's a dumb question. If we knew we were going to the gas chambers, of course we would have rebelled. But if we don't know that, life is precious, you want to live. You're being led by the nose, thinking maybe someday there will be a better day. The first day on the train, my mother asked me to write a letter to my brother Jacques. In it, I said we had hope and courage, that we hoped to join sisters deported before us in a resettlement camp and to become a united family again. I added a postscript. Tell Amy to go to the laundry and pick up the tan sheets. Why would my mother ask me to write this if she knew 3 days later she'd be ashes? We did not know. The cattle cars were sealed. We were in darkness. 2 wooden buckets for toilet facilities for 100 people. A piece of bread, margarine, sausage, straw on the floor. Not knowing where we were going. The crying, the moaning, the stench. You couldn't even sit. When they opened the doors at Kozel, screaming soldiers with dogs barked at us. Raus! Raus! Schnell! Schnell! They told men to jump off and sit on the ground. My brother-in-law jumped. I followed. I was 16 and a half, but looked 12. An SS officer saw me and said, "You, back on the train," hitting me with his rifle butt. What saved me was standing at the open door with an older man, passing water to people still on the train. Another SS officer asked my age. The man next to me said, "I'm 16. The German pushed me off the train. My mother, I'm going to cry saying this, she kissed my forehead before I jumped from the train. She said, "Be a good boy. Do exactly what they tell you. Obey them. Tantrums won't help anymore. I won't be here." God, I miss her. I'm 68 years old and still crying. I'm even sadder about my father because I never talked to him during those 3 days. The train left. We didn't know where it was going. We didn't know about Auschwitz-Blechhammer or extermination camps. We 175 men were put in open trucks to Ottmuth, a slave labor camp. Young Germans yelled at us, spit at us, called us dirty Jew bastards. When we arrived, they shaved us from head to toe, gave us ill-fitted clothes with Stars of David cut out. We weren't given numbers yet. Miracles happened. I sang. A Polish woman, the girlfriend of the Jewish camp commandant, heard me. She told him, "Listen to this kid." He loved it. Each time the Gestapo came to make selections, I was put aside so I wouldn't be deported. I would stay as long as we were there. I worked in a shoe factory, making 4,000 pairs of wooden heels a day. It was so noisy. All day long, to keep my morale up, I would sing all the French songs I knew. That's how I kept myself alive. I always say you couldn't survive alone in camps. You had to have family you loved and stuck together with, or you had to have friends. I got involved with 2 young French kids. We would share everything, talk about our past in France. That helps you. If you feel low one day, the other person boosts you up. When we had time, I would entertain, and that was my saving grace. When I sang, I forgot where I was. The chef in the kitchen would give me extra bread and soup. I stayed in that camp 19 months. We didn't know about extermination camps for a long time. Every night before I closed my eyes, I would pray to God to save everybody in my family, going from my father down to the last nephew. Even when I knew about extermination camps, I thought, maybe they'll escape like I'm escaping. In May 1944, we were evacuated to Blechhammer, a satellite of Auschwitz. From 150 people, we became 3,000. Brick walls, electrified barbed wire, guard towers, SS guards. Arbeit macht frei. They shaved us again, disinfected us in a vat of vile green liquid, gave us striped uniforms with wooden clogs. Then they took us to a barrack and tattooed us. The number is A5714. That was my number from then on. We were branded cattle. Forget Widerman. Forget Robert. I'm A5714. Again, luck. The Judenälteste from Ottmuth told the one in Blechhammer I was a good entertainer. Every Sunday I entertained for the elite and got extra bread. We had a maniac SS guard we called Tom Mix because he thought he was a cowboy. He would shoot at random, scream, hit us constantly. One day a man took a useless piece of wire from the ground, probably to make a belt. Tom Mix hit him and the two guys next to him. A Belgian capo protested. Tom Mix hit him too. All four were hanged days later. For nothing. The first hanging on a saw, I was terrified. I had to be on guard duty at night with corpses hanging. But after the third hanging, I wasn't scared anymore. That's frightening, what they did to us. We worked 12 hours, then stood at roll calls for hangings for 2 more hours. Sometimes Tom Mix would make us exercise all night, up, down, crawling, hitting us. That was his joy. The factory was bombed daily by Allied planes. They made shelters but wouldn't let us in. Many of us died from bombs. January 1945, we heard the Russians were coming. On January 21st, they evacuated the camp. We walked, 4,000 people, in freezing cold, snow up to our knees, in light-striped uniforms, SS on each side with guns. Their order, if you can't walk, you'll be killed. And they kept those orders. We heard shotguns constantly. When we found barns, we'd sleep on straw for 3 hours. I would escape, go to nearby farms and ask for bread. They gave me bread and milk. Instead of staying and taking my chances, I went back to the barn, back to the people I knew. I did that twice. Amazing. We walked for 15 days and nights. We arrived at Gross Rosen. Only 2,000 of us. They'd killed 2,000. It was overcrowded, not enough food. My friend George couldn't make it. I saw him in the mud, dead. Did I cry? I didn't. To me it was just somebody who couldn't make it. I was still alive, and he was dead. After 3 days, they put us on an open cattle train. We traveled for days to Buchenwald. Allied bombers machine-gunned us. We arrived after walking 6 miles late at night, 1,200 from 4,000. Those were the ones who survived. In Buchenwald, I was saved by 4 non-Jews. The head of the delousing department was a German communist, there since 1937. He gave me bread. Then I met 2 saintly Frenchmen, Yves Diane and Claude Francis Buffet, underground fighters. They took pity on me, nurtured me back to life, gave me food, the first sugar I'd seen since September 1942. They saw to it nothing would happen to me. Yves knew a man, Howie Zak, a Czechoslovakian communist, head secretary of the camp. He played bass fiddle. Yves had an orchestra. I would sing from barrack to barrack. When they started evacuating Jews again from Buchenwald, more death marches, Howie got my papers, put them aside, and hid me in his barrack. By the way, my name, Robert Clary, was given to me by my 2 French friends in Buchenwald. I said if we were liberated, I'd go back into show business, but Widerman was too long, and I was still afraid of antisemitism. One day, talking about a French movie called The Adventure of Désiré Clary, Yves said, "Robert Clary, that's your name." That's how I became Robert Clary. Though I must tell you, I wish I hadn't changed it. I wish I was still called Widerman. We were liberated on April 11th, 1945, by our own people. The underground inmates had smuggled arms, cut the wires, went into the forest. When American forces arrived, the SS had fled. The joy was unbelievable. We made an SOS with our bodies on the ground so Allied planes could see we were there. A week after liberation, we gave a concert for the GIs in that theater where I'd nearly died. I sang a lot of songs. It's amazing. I stuck with my 2 French friends like glue. They were my parents. The first day we went out of camp, I kept looking behind me because I was so used to having dogs and guards. I was screaming with joy. We are free. I'm a free person. I have a name that belongs to me. 3 weeks later, we were back in France. On May 4th, we arrived in Paris at Hotel Lutetia. I heard my name screamed, "Robert!" I turned and saw my sister Cecile in the Auxiliary Corps unit. We cried like I'd never cried before. She told me who was alive. My half-brother Henri, my half-sister Fanny with her family, my brother Jacques, my sister Amy, my sister Madeleine, and her. I couldn't believe it. I was 19 years old, no self-pity. I turned that page so fast. I had one goal. I had family, and I wanted to go back into show business. I never wanted to talk about what I went through, never, and they respected my silence. I worked. I knocked on nightclub doors in Montmartre, singing and auditioning. I became a band singer. In 1947, an American named Harry Bluestone heard me and wanted to record me. I recorded 4 songs phonetically. Beginning of 1948, my records were big hits in America. He signed me to a 7-year contract. I arrived in the United States in October 1949. I was a big flop at first, but I met my wife through Merv Griffin. She was one of Eddie Cantor's daughters. Her father helped my career tremendously. I auditioned for New Faces of 1952 on Broadway, got signed right away. It was a tremendous hit. My life started to take shape. My wife and I were closest friends for 15 years before I realized this is the woman I love. We've been married since 1965. I was lucky in 1965 when I did Hogan's Heroes, which was a tremendous hit all over the world. My life changed drastically in 1980 when I realized I cannot stay silent about my experiences. As a survivor, I have a duty. I have to leave a legacy. I saw a documentary about a survivor who said, 30, 40 years from now, we'll all be dead, and anybody can write anything they want about it. I realized she was right. I cannot, after 36 years of silence, stay quiet. I have to teach people about man's inhumanity to man. Since 1980, I've joined the Simon Wiesenthal Center and talked to millions of young children in high schools, colleges, and universities. I teach them that you cannot live with hate. I do not live with hate. I'm not just saying words. If you want this world to be alive, to be fertile, you have to stop feeling superior to another human being just because they have different color skin, different shaped eyes, or different religion. Give them as much chance as you want to have. The response is tremendous. People ask, "You've been doing this for 14 years?" I say, I'm only doing it because the response is positive. It's very tough because each time you talk for an hour, you relive the painful life you had. But they have to understand, if we stay in apathy, that's what's going to happen, and it is happening. I say to them, when are we going to tell students to face a map of the world, close their eyes, pinpoint it, and when they open their eyes, wherever they pointed, nothing terrible is happening? When are we going to say, look, nothing's happening now? Isn't that great? It's a great world. You have to do it because we haven't. We still hate. Look at the world today with neo-Nazis, Nazi skinheads, white supremacy groups, and so-called revisionists who are really deniers, poisoning this world. You cannot let them. That's why we survivors have a duty. I am more than willing to talk, even if I cry, and sometimes I do. But you have to do it. It's something you have to leave for future generations. My grandchildren know about it. I've talked to their schools. They know about me. 13 members of my immediate family were deported. I'm the only one who came back. But I'm still here. I survived, and I will never let the world forget.